I think that if you have a tiny subset of things that you are studying and a tiny subset of people you're comparing yourself to, then it's really easy to feel awesome about yourself. But if you compare yourself to, I compare myself every day to Warren Buffett. And like him and Munger are like my heroes, mostly because the way they lived life and what they like, just everything about the way they lived is something that I just love. And like I have Buffett's net worth by age tracked, and I have like mine tracked, and I'm like, all right, just gotta stay above that line. And
are you above it? He's got a big line at the moment?
I am right now, but like I had his world was different.
Yep.
Like Warren didn't have Warren to learn from.
George turned to me and he said, general ambition gives you anxiety, specific ambition gives you direction. There is nothing more anxiety inducing than I want to be better and I don't know what at and I don't know how. Like, just think about that for a second, sort of embody that. It's sort of a chasing, it's a lean in, and it's tight, and sort of your shoulders are up and there's a ringing in your ears and you have no idea. It's like a threat. You've heard a noise in the forest and you have no idea where it's come from. Specific ambition gives you direction. Bezos, if you've heard any of his interviews, seems like a very humble guy. But like, you could have 100 billionaires in a room and he is worth the same amount as them. And then if you had each one of those billionaires as 1,000 millionaires, he's still worth the same amount as 100,000 millionaires and then him. So like, there's just levels to it. And I think the moment you get to ego is the moment you stop growing, because you feel like you beat the level, but you just keep repeating the level rather than moving up, because there is a harder boss and they just haven't faced it yet. Sadness is a perceived lack of options. It's why it feels like hopelessness, because you don't know what to do. You don't know what options are available. You see none, which is why it feels like there's no way out. Anxiety is many options but no priorities, which is why you feel scattered but you can't decide. They feel very different, but fundamentally, those are the difference in the conditions that make people feel like they're anxious or they feel like they're sad. And so when we're working through what you were just talking about with, okay, I want to be gym guy and I also want to be work guy, we have many options, but a lack of priorities. And so we have anxiety over the fact that we're not making progress on any of them because we have not been able to say, this comes first. And so if we think about what priority means, it means prior. It comes before everything else. And what I think a lot of people have a hard time doing is being okay with saying no and saying, okay, I will allow myself to just not get fatter rather than get fitter during this period. And what's interesting about most skills is that the amount of effort that it takes to maintain a skill versus the amount of effort it takes to grow a skill is like 1/10 the amount of effort. And so this is where the effort arbitrage is so important in terms of allocation. And so if you do a 4 out of 10 on 10 things, you will make progress on none. You will make the same amount of progress that you could have made if you just did 1 out of 10, which is none. You just don't regress. But the extra 3 points that you save on the 9, you could put on one other item and have a 10 out of 10 or a 13 out of 10 in effort. And then after every periodized chunk of time, have a big W or win that you can look back on and say, I did that, and therefore I am. People measure the amount of calories that they need to eat per day, but very few people measure the amount of calories they need to eat per week. And so people will blow the day and say, well, screw it, I messed up today. I might as well have a pizza on top of it because I had chocolate and I went off my diet or whatever. But if you have a weekly outlook even, then all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, I can have a pizza tonight. I'll just like skip most of my food tomorrow besides protein. Or I'll have a wedding weekend and know that this whole week I'm going to be light. And so I have, 13,000 calories for the next 7 days that I can work my way through, which gives me a tremendous amount of flexibility. Mm-hmm. And the thing is that the further you extend the time horizon, the more flexible you can be with your achievement of it, as long as you only get the few things that matter most. And so it allows you to focus and prioritize on those few things that move the needle, rather than be overly obsessive on such a small, narrow window of time that is irrelevant anyways.